Thank you all for joining. So as Usman mentioned, we are the Ash team, and we are part of the first Codebase cohort. And today I'm going to introduce you to Suzaku, the restaking framework for sovereign networks. So what do we mean by sovereign networks is actually proof of stake, application-specific chain, or generic purpose layer 1 that will launch and will have the difficult task at first to bootstrap their crypto economic security. At first, when you launch your own layer 1 with your token and using proof of stake, your token is new, it has high volatility, maybe a low market cap, and it's kind of hard to convince other people to buy and stake a large amount of this token to actually become a validator of your app chain or layer 1. On the other side, we have the concept of shared security, which allows some more established proof of stake network like Ethereum to lend and share the security to other proof of stake chains. Also, EigenLayer recently introduced the restaking primitive, and so this happens in the Ethereum ecosystem. So on Ethereum, you can use EigenLayer to restake your staked Ethereum assets to help secure additional decentralized services. And so what we are bringing with Suzaku restaking is a framework to ease the launch and decentralization of such sovereign networks. So I've been talking about sovereign networks for a while, and as I told you, sovereign networks can be generic purpose layer 1s or application-specific chains. And what is the best place to run networks like this? To us is the Avalanche ecosystem and the Avalanche L1 stack. And so what we'll be bringing with Suzaku is the framework to bootstrap your own chain using the unified architecture powered by Avalanche and the Avalanche stack, as well as the Suzaku chain, which will orchestrate all the restaking operation inside the Suzaku protocol. And at first, when it comes to staking and restaking, we'll accept blue chip token as well as stablecoin that will be used in different manners, which you are going to see in the next slides. I will just keep this one for now because we don't have much time. So why Avalanche? I've been talking about Avalanche. While building on Avalanche or L1, you benefit from the Avalanche consensus, which is the best on the market. The Avalanche stack is really flexible. You can build an EVM blockchain, a MoveVL blockchain. We also have HyperSDK on which Avlabs is working, which has proven to be really performant, achieving more than 100,000 TPS in testnet. And also, Avalanche has Avalanche Warp Messaging, which is the native interoperability solution for Avalanche layer 1s. So what we can build with Suzaku? Basically anything. So when it comes to app chains, obviously you can build products in the DeFi ecosystem, decentralized exchanges, centralized limit order books. Avalanche is really big on the gaming side, and so this is also something you can achieve with your sovereign network on Suzaku. But you can also tend to other needs. For example, we have a team which is Notkit, building a decentralized shell sequencer for Ethereum rollups. And ourselves will be building our own chain using our own Suzaku protocol, which will supercharge the Avalanche Warp Messaging protocol to provide censorship resistance and liveness. I've already exceeded 3 minutes, so I will just end here with the roadmap. We'll be launching pretty soon on the Avalanche mainnet. So at first, we will launch staking contracts. So stakers will be able to deposit AVAX and liquid stake AVAX to help secure additional networks in the forms of Avalanche Layer 1. So that will be our first step approach. And then later this year and by the beginning of the next year, we'll be releasing the Suzaku protocol. And just so you know, Suzaku is actually the Japanese name of the vermilion bird, which is one of the 4 symbols of the Chinese constellation. Hence the cool name and the cool logo. Thanks for listening.
Testing, testing. So I'm Kirsten, and I'm going to be telling you a bit about Review. So in my opinion, we're building one of the consumer applications of blockchain that is going to be the most powerful. And this is really in the hiring space, and it's all around identity. So how many of you have ever freelanced before? Nice, that's most of us. That makes sense considering almost 50% of the global population are freelancers and part-time workers. This is me when I started freelancing. And the biggest thing on my mind was always, how do I find enough clients? I was a software developer. Usually what I would do is I would call up my friends, but eventually you sort of run out of people to call. So you have to turn to online applications that help you reach a larger network. In order to be able to reliably find clients, you need a reputation. This is a record of what you've done, for whom, and what they think of it. When we're dealing with individuals, people have in their heads their knowledge of our work because they've worked with us before. But if we're dealing with any sort of scalable system, you need to have a way to verify reputation. So using your personal network works, but it doesn't scale. And using freelance platforms seem cool. You could talk to anyone in the world and get hired. But unfortunately, freelance platforms suck. They take up to 20% of your pay, they can ban you, and most importantly, they have your reputation captive. And that's why only 20% of freelancers actually use freelance platforms. When people do use them, they try to get off of them as fast as possible. That means that 80% of freelancers cannot be reliably searched for on the internet. This is meaning that hirers just can't find the best people out there. In the future, we think that things will work very differently. Anyone will be able to search for you. Anyone will be able to hire you. Anyone will be able to trust your reputation. And your reputation will be able to be owned by you. This is what we're building at Review. Review lets you request reviews from clients, own the rights to those reviews, and then get inbound leads from clients directly through search results. Review is payment method agnostic. You can use whatever payment method you want, and what's great about that is you can use it with any existing platform, just requesting reviews this way. The way we store reviews is we use cryptographic proofs to verify the reviews and that payments have been completed, and then we store that data on-chain. Because we're leveraging blockchain, we're able to make it so that you can use your reviews anywhere, you can aggregate your reputation, and you can never lose access. And we're also leveraging, as a growth mechanism, rep rewards. So these are growing in as long with your reputation as you're getting more reviews, and can be used for different applications in the app. But why are we actually building this? We're building this because our team have all been freelancers. Both my co-founder and I have been freelancers for a decade in software development. We've also both built hiring marketplaces as previous startups, and our two team members also have freelanced for a long time. So, do you believe in our mission? If so, sign the Freelancers Manifesto. So this is something that we are launching now during this presentation as well as some others this week. And it's basically just a call to action to say you believe that freelancing should work differently and it should be better in the future. So thank you guys.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Yanis, the founder of Dripit, and I'm going to talk to you about our solution to create the first financial layer for music artists. So let's start talking about music first. I won't even ask. I'm sure everybody here listens to music, one way or another. So let's talk about the side from professionals who are depending on music to make off a living. So the truth is there are over 11 million artists on Spotify. However, most of them retain only about 15% of value that they generate on the #1 streaming platform. And to top it off, there is a noticeable disconnect between artists and fandom. So how has Web3 tried to tackle all these problems so far? We haven't fared well, let's face it. First of all, most projects are trying to antagonize existing structures, whether that's on the distribution side or other incentives mechanisms built around that, like royalties. NFT sales don't really translate to artist growth. So even if we try to make a temporary boosted revenue for artists, they don't really help them grow their audience, which is what artists actually care about. And this is just a gateway where I can confidently say that we really got it wrong on tokenization. Lack of fractionalization leads to unaffordable entries. So, as we mentioned earlier, this doesn't really translate to artist growth. And also, the secondary markets for music NFTs are pretty much liquid, and there is not enough traction for new artists to actually get enticed to enter this market. And there is a noticeable failure to break into mainstream that is driven by subpar UX. So how are we trying to solve all this with Dripit? First of all, we aim to create untapped revenue streams that are totally new and independent from existing structures in the music industry. We are providing artists with the tools to nurture high-intent fans, which are the most promising source of additional revenue for artists that have a very die-hard fan base. And also, most importantly, we're building for the masses. We're hiding all blockchain-related UX under the hood and make our product and our platform accessible to anyone that just has a social account or an email. Let's take a quick peek at the ecosystem that we're building. So our main primitive is tokenizing the brand and likeness of an artist. This takes the form of a launchpad sale that gets their token to market, and it makes it investable by fans or speculators. The second part of this funnel is obviously having liquidity for these tokens and make them available for trading. So we have an integrated DEX that, again, is usable without requiring a crypto wallet installed by the user, just a social account, and you're good to go. These are fine as primitives, but they don't really create a sustainable ecosystem by itself. So our main goal here is to attach verticals that are engaging and gamified so that fans can actually spend time on the platform and get to use it as a discovery tool to get to know more artists. So our first vertical that we're launching ourselves is a prediction market based on stats on Spotify. That creates a fun opportunity for fans to permissionlessly pit artists against each other, but also drives intrinsic value back to the tokens by having a revenue share mechanism, both with the artist that is tokenized, but also with their token holders. So the whole premise of our product is introducing the brand as an asset business model. And we're building to become the go-to financial layer standing between artists and fandom. The goal here is to have millions of artists worldwide, build direct artist-to-fan relationships, which will also translate to their brand value. This is the most valuable asset in the music market as it is right now, but it's still lacking the direct relation with being financialized and having a monetary value attached to it. So we're activating a new market by tokenizing an artist brand. Down the line, we plan to expand the brand as an asset business model to adjacent verticals. That makes sense. Our first MVP launch is due in about a month. We call it Battles. And it's, as I mentioned earlier, the permissionless prediction market between artists. So it's based on Spotify, and we're distributing incentives across the artists, their token holders, and the market maker for these markets. But most important, it creates a positive flywheel effect for artist growth, because the fans are no longer just consumers. We're elevating them to be stakeholders. So I just want to finish this with a very powerful realization that we made as a team. Music is the most widely consumed form of art. And this creates a very, very unique opportunity to actually build a blockchain-powered Web3 product for the masses. So I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and you're down to join us in our mission to realign incentives across the board in the music industry. Thank you.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Thor, and this is 5W. So, put simply, 5W is a social fi hub for researchers to publish their work and earn money doing so. Currently, the publishing industry is fundamentally broken and predatory. Researchers' main focus is writing and publishing research papers, but they have to pay exorbitant publishing fees, going up to $1,000 per article, and they get nothing in return. Additionally, there's also a broken peer review system with broken incentives leading to unpaid reviewers and inefficient work. So on the other side, people hoping to access this research also have troubles. All research right now is basically behind paywalls, where they have to pay hundreds of dollars for access to each article. And that means that if you're not in a well-funded institution, it's very hard to access new and groundbreaking discoveries. It's also impossible to connect and engage with researchers right now. So it's also very clear that these are widespread problems. The academic publishing industry brings in $19 billion of revenue per year, and it has a 40% profit margin just for being middlemen. On the other hand, you have researchers and the public who both want easier access. 3 million researchers already are posting their work on Twitter, and there's 150 million search requests blocked by JSTOR, a journal repository, each year. That's where 5W comes in. So 5W is a disruptive social-fi research hub built on the Avalanche blockchain. 5W, what does it do? It makes publication more accessible by removing financial barriers, and it provides opportunities for monetization for researchers. It improves on the peer review process by bringing it on-chain and integrating it onto our platform. And it also enables open access and engagement, bringing the community closer together. 5W is built on 3 main pillars. So you have the feed. That's where researchers can publish, discover, and engage with their fellow scholars, allowing them to publish research papers, think pieces, and nugget posts. Then you have the community hub. Peers and the public can purchase and trade researcher tickets, and that allows them to access exclusive content, allowing them to share their iterative work and slides, for example, at conferences. Then again, you have the peer review process, which is integrated on-chain peer review on our platform. Here's a quick look at the homepage and the profile of a researcher. And here's what it would look like to publish your research paper on our platform. Again, so we're an early prototype, and we have 15 plus researchers committed across different research departments. We have a 250 user waitlist. And we started at TreeHacks, which is the Stanford's hackathon, where we won first place at Avalabs' competition. And since then, we went to Codebase, the accelerator, and we won 3rd place there. This is our team. I'm Thor, studying computer science at USC. And this is my co-founder, Ethan, studying EECS and industrial engineering at Berkeley. We're builders at heart, and we've won 4 hackathons so far since November 2023. So join the waitlist, connect on Twitter. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, we meet again. For those who have missed the previous session, this is when we were explaining how we're building what we're building. And here we'll be focusing more on the why. So basically why the business makes sense and why this is needed. For those who weren't in the previous session, my name is George, and I'm one of the co-founders of Axon, which is the world's first decentralized clearinghouse. Now, why are we building what we are building, and why do we believe it's important? 3 trillion have been transferred between fiat and crypto in 2022, and practically all of this volume went to centralized platforms. Unfortunately, these platforms lack the transparency, and in many cases, they operate in environments with high conflict of interest. Some of the founders might want to buy yachts. Some of the founders might want to invest customer funds into risky bets to maximize profit. There are so many reasons for a conflict of interest. And the combination of lack of transparency and conflict of interest can lead to articles like these ones. I'm pretty sure that most of you are familiar with those. But think about it, if you were an employee at one of those companies before they collapsed, even if you knew at one point that this is a Ponzi scheme, what can you do? You can reach out to regulators, but those would most likely not do anything until the collapse happens, because they need to follow due process. It's hard to put someone, shut down even a company and so on. And most likely nothing will happen. You can email the media, but the same are getting paid millions in advertisement dollars in many cases. So there's another obvious conflict of interest. Most likely they won't write an article piece that jeopardizes their revenue. And in essence, there's not much you can do. You're just sitting and waiting. So when we were looking at the market in 2021 and 2022, we were seeing so many of the red flags. Unfortunately, many of those people weren't. And in the end, they ended up in this unpleasant statistics. It's also then when we realized that the way to solve this problem is building a solution which makes all of these companies irrelevant. And that's what we're doing. Why moving funds between fiat and crypto is difficult? Because currently centralized exchanges are the only ones who can properly do it, and we call it the trilemma problem. So a transaction between the two worlds can have the following three properties. It can be fast, low cost, and trustless. But at best, you usually get 2 out of 3. So if we look at centralized institutions, they're fast and low cost once you put your money on the platform, but they're definitely not trustless. You do have custody risk with them. And few of examples that can happen due to that. First example, this woman bought some crypto on one of the popular exchanges in the US, and then she realized she cannot take the money outside of the platform for the next 10 to 15 days. The first comment is kind of funny, Schrodinger's Bitcoin, there but not there. But in reality, that's what happens. You have the asset, you cannot take it out, you cannot go to a DeFi protocol, you're just sitting there and waiting. And now this lockup period here is 10 to 15 days, but these companies can hold your funds hostage for months. And this can be both for legitimate reasons as well as illegitimate reasons. And you never know. It might be because they lack the liquidity, or maybe they're just insolvent, or maybe because they really need to do additional compliance. It's a good excuse, by the way. But in many cases, it's a valid reason, and you never know. Which one is it? Your funds are sitting there, you cannot do anything. And then it can get really dark. What's the alternative? You can go to on and off ramp solutions, which are fast, they seem trustless, they're actually not, but people perceive them that way. So let's say they are. The problem there is the fees. We're speaking about 3, 4, 5% in fees. That's kind of like a highway robbery. But these companies need to charge those fees in order to kind of like deal with the fraud compliance and AML issues that can come up. And that's something we touched in the previous discussion. This is needed. So these companies will definitely not be cheap. And then you can go to peer-to-peer solutions, which are low cost and kind of trustless. The issue there is, in many cases, buying crypto with those is kind of like going on a forum to buy some crypto. It's not the best user experience, and especially during times of market imbalance. So for example, if everyone is buying or everyone is selling, it might take a week or two to get your order filled, because there's no such thing as market making on a peer-to-peer platform. And then the worst part is these solutions can be utilized by fraudsters quite easily. So banks tend to block accounts very easily, which is for solutions that are for people who are using peer-to-peer solutions. So in the end, they become unusable in those situations. And that's the current status quo. That's the picture we're so used to. We don't even realize it. And we think this is normal. In our opinion, this is definitely not normal. And this should change. Enter Axon, which is the first low-cost, fast, and fully non-custodial protocol to offer fast, low-cost, and fully non-custodial transaction settlement. So people no longer need to choose between the two, the lesser evil. And in terms of flagship products, the protocol on a high level, for those who skipped the previous session, basically we have the secure transaction space where we liquefy funds moving between TradFi and DeFi. Basically, we merge traditional finance and DeFi into one in this secure transaction space. And it has deep liquidity and fully gasless experience. The incorruptible computing network sits on top of it, which is connected to over 14,000 financial institutions. And it kind of provides a fully encrypted and end-to-end encrypted communication channel between TradFi and DeFi. All of this is further secured by our security preserving blockchain, which is on top of Avalanche S1s. And we're running basically a proprietary consensus algorithm, which validates any proof generated by the ICN, so the incorruptible computing network. And this validation then gets through the consensus algorithm and so on. This model allows us to have validator-based decentralized security, which can scale infinitely as much as we need. And all of these components combined basically allow us to build first-of-a-kind non-custodial flow funds, both for buying and for selling crypto assets. So you can think about it, as mentioned, as a decentralized clearinghouse. We are able to clear the risk out of each transaction without the need to hold custody over the funds. And once you have the protocol in place, you can build this beautiful user experience, which we call Axon 360. Is basically a mobile app where you can do fully non-custodial trading, lending and borrowing of both fiat and crypto. You can think about it also like Coinbase with zero custody risk. So you have your bank account connected to the app. That's something that everybody has. But beyond this bank account, we don't require any additional trust to be placed in the system. So no third-party trust must be given. And you can still do everything that you like. And that's it. We make the whole process between moving of funds between the two worlds very simple. Instead of doing these multiple steps and multiple days of waiting times and so on and hurdles and etc., just a few clicks. Simple as that. So that's Axon. Anyone who is interested to learn more, feel free to scan the code. We would love to have you on board as users. We're live in Europe. Anyone who scans will get the priority access. And in a few weeks, we're live in US. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Such a diverse group of folks, right? Diverse group of projects and diverse group of interests. But what we're going to do now is we're going to get into a little bit more about getting to know them as people and getting to know them as founders. So we're going to invite all 5 of them up here to get started. We're going to have a small panel, and we're going to open it up for Q&A in a bit as well. All right, perfect. All right, so it's crazy to me. I work at Ava Labs, been a part of the company for about 2 years now, and it's crazy to me to see just in 10 weeks how much things can change, right? Like I remember all you guys starting at the beginning of the cohort and seeing like obviously going from hackathon to product, right? Going from one idea to pivoting, right? And like finding you guys' flow, finding you guys' balance through the whole process. So you guys probably learned a lot, right? As founders, as people in this space, and building a company in this space is not easy. So I guess maybe we just start off, we could pass around the mic and just take a little bit of learnings from all you guys about what you've learned in the past 10 weeks, what you've learned as a founder in this space in general. I know some of you guys have been in this space much longer than just Codebase, so would love to just learn about building a company here.
Yeah, so this is actually my first time like entering the blockchain space through Codebase, building at the hackathon. So I've learned so much from all these amazing people. Like they've accelerated my learning so much, and the people at Ava Labs as well. It's been incredible. And just like, I think the process of like repetition and like going over and iterating on work has been really helpful. Yeah.
So I would say my biggest learning over the past few weeks, both before Codebase as well as sort of reinforced through Codebase, is I really think we need to be focusing more on consumer apps. So I was an infra founder for 2 years. You heard him mention pivot. We pivoted. We're no longer infra first. And I've seen this really across the board with a lot of fellow founders. Like we try for like year, 2 years, 3 years to make an infra work, but in the end, if no one's using the apps, nothing is really going to be making much of an impact on the world. So I think we really need to be focusing on consumer apps. That's why we're doing that, and I'm excited to see a lot of other folks in Codebase doing that as well.
I would agree with that, but it's funny because we are actually like the only project ourselves which is infra in all of the code base. But I definitely agree with you, and this is what I also liked about the program is all these consumer apps, you know, because we ourselves, we are both technical founders, and so infra is our thing, you know, but I just love to, what I loved about Codebase is seeing all these amazing projects that leveraging Avalanche, the blockchain, the Web3 space in general, and what struck me the most is the diversity, right, of all the different things that we can achieve with this technology.
Yeah, I'm gonna be another. I'm gonna piggyback on what Kirsten said, and in our case specifically, our BD sessions with Codebase back in Lisbon really helped us find our way to nail down the business model. Initially, we were trying to take a more, let's say, tried and tested approach on how we will do this music tokenization thing, but in the end, we realized that we are much better off focusing on, what we want to be our end game. We want to get a product out there for actual consumers, not just the Web3 native crowd. And that opens up a target audience much, much, much bigger, like magnitudes of scale bigger than most crypto native products are targeting right now. And yeah, it was a great journey, and also, as Thor said, it's very, very useful to have an amazing cohort of founders to, throw ideas around, and like sparring partners, let's say, on the brainstorming part. And it was very valuable for us that we had the chance to do that up close in the sessions in Lisbon and in Austin, Texas, leading up to actually launching our product.
Yeah, and I'll also go a little bit out of the scope of the question and say the learning part was definitely interesting, and I think what Codebase has done quite well is to structure this program, invite the right people to give talks and so on. That was quite valuable. But I won't go in that direction. I would provide the value that we found most out of the whole experience, and it's really around the talent that Codebase managed to put together in terms of both cohort members as well as all the support that we got from Avalanche and the Avalanche ecosystem in general. And just a few things to highlight, like the brainstorming, like combining talent and connections. I think that's immensely strong value proposition. And obviously, just going through the brainstorm exercises, we actually improve our architecture. For those who were on the previous discussion, the architecture that you guys saw was influenced by the whole experience. We improved it, we make it stronger, made it stronger, we improved the token utility, and that's something that you can get only when you put enough smart people in one room. And I think Codebase managed to do that. And the second thing for us, which was immensely valuable, is the connectivity with other teams, other projects in the Avalanche ecosystem. I've been quite grateful for the support that we had in that space as well, and that area as well, and it has been truly valuable. So, yeah.
It's actually pretty cool to hear from my perspective, because like when we were pitched Codebase, however many, I think it was almost a year and a half ago now, it was just this idea. It was purely just this idea of, hey, we want to find people, cool ideas, and support them however we can, right? And like make this BD process that we do in general, make it more formalized, right? So it's great to hear like all the nice things that came out of it. But I think what we all know, being in this space and being in the startup world in general, is that building a startup is not easy, right? And more so in this space, we're all building startups one way or the other. Whether you work at a company, whether you're building something fresh, whether you're working at a company that already exists, we're all startups. Alva Labs is a startup. All the companies that you see are startups, just at different levels, right? And so when building startups, you face so many problems, so many growing pains, and you kind of have to stomach a lot of that pain to continue forward. So I'd love to hear from each of you guys about maybe the biggest problem that you faced throughout your journey in building a startup, or just one or a few of the problems that you face and how you had to deal with that through your journey as founders.
I'll have to take a second.
If I look back and ask myself a few months ago, I would have definitely said everything around fundraising. So in my last startup, I raised, but for this one, things just really work different in the crypto space. Like figuring out, I don't know, all of the weird games that certain VCs play and who to trust and who not to trust and trying to take advice from other founders that you know. It's just a new world. And I think in hindsight, I'm glad that we didn't like raise formally yet. I think I would have made some mistakes if I had done that a bit earlier. We've just been accepting a lot of grants and angel investment to date. So we've hustled, we've been able to do that, but yeah. I mean, at this point, we're sort of trying to figure out, do we even like want to raise? Maybe we just want to bootstrap, just do a public token sale, stuff like that. So everything around that, I would say.
Yeah, I would also expand on her answer, and I would say distribution is always. I think the biggest challenge for any startup, distribution is always the key that each one of us needs to crack. And I would be very excited to see Codebase even expanding what they're currently doing in that area and kind of building on top of that. There's so many relationships that can be built with micro-influencers, bloggers, small newsletters and stuff like that, which can really propel the early stages of any distribution activity. And if you think about it, fundraising is a sort of distribution. We're still selling. We're selling to the earlier believers in the product, the pioneers, the innovators. These are, in the end, are actually the VCs, because they're the first to believe in the vision that we have before even it hits the market, before anyone does anything with the product. And I still consider this part of distribution, and I think the better the program gets in that regard, and it already has a solid foundation, but I'm very curious to monitor how you guys expand in that area, because I think in the end we can build very cool products and learn very cool things, but if we don't manage to really hit the nail hard on the distribution part, so what?
Both points raised are actually accurate. I totally agree. I'd like to add another perspective here. It sort of expands on what George said, capturing mindshare. So depending, obviously, on what your product is and who you're trying to, let's say, tap into, what kind of network, what kind of users, what kind of investors, that obviously changes. But I think it's like it's a two-sided, double-edged sword, let's say, because it also pushes you to try new things. Markets have trends, as you said, Kirsten. Some time ago, raising was different, maybe easier. So following the same playbook won't necessarily work. But on the other side, it also kind of pushes you to, do something different, pioneer. And that can actually, turn around and be a very, very strong feature of your team, of your product.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have anything more relevant to say, but maybe something that I found out maybe the hard way about building a startup, being a founder, is that coming from a technical background, I quickly realized that building the best technical solution is just not enough, It's not, maybe not even half of it. There's just there are many components to building a company: marketing, go-to-market strategy, fundraising, like you mentioned. And so this is what has been really also nice about Codebase is, as George mentioned earlier, the ability from the Avalanche team to have all these really good workshops and good introduction to us. And all these people have been really helpful. And what was also good is that it addressed a various amount of topics. Like, obviously, as technical founder, the technical workshops were maybe less of an interest to us, but the others about pitch deck best practices, marketing, go-to-market, etc., finding your user persona, stuff like this. This has been really, really interesting to us, and I think this has helped us more to realize that there is much more than just building your product.
So I was thinking about it, right? And I think one of the most annoying things has actually been the frustration of people not understanding what you're saying. So you'll talk to a lot of people when you're founding a company, and even though in your head you might think you have like this perfect description of what you're doing, there's a lot of times when you'll meet someone and they won't understand anything that you're saying, and you have to tackle it from another perspective and another perspective until you find something that actually works. So that's pretty frustrating, but it's pretty rewarding because it then lets you see your company in a different way, and it actually lets you like build on that as well. And then I think the other thing is being put on the spot, like I was put just now. I think you see that a lot, having to think on your feet, but it is also very, very fun.
That's good to hear. But you know, one thing as all you guys were talking that I was realizing that is that you guys have all had to, if pivot isn't the right word, but change in one way or the other, right? Whether that's your actual product, whether that's the way that you view distribution, whether that's the way that you view your technical side of your company. So how important really is it to be constantly flexible? I know one thing that, you know, when you read all these startup books and like the Peter Thiel 0 to 1 books of the world, they always talk about, you know, the biggest trait of success is of a founder is their adaptability or willingness to adapt to different environments, right, and different changes and different times, right? So what worked before may not work tomorrow. What you had an idea of that was the best idea in the world may actually not be, and you might have to change it, or whatever the case is. So how do you have to deal with that, and how often do you guys actually see yourselves in those situations?
Yeah, so from the hackathon idea, building that out in like, 24 hours, 36 hours, from there to where we are now, we've pivoted a lot, we've changed a lot. But I think it's been really great that we've done that, because the original hackathon idea, while it was a good idea, in the real world, that's not really like how it works. And you need to be constantly changing, you need to be constantly adapting the idea.
I think that most first-time, sometimes second-time founders, when they think about the product that they're building, the problem they're solving, they get really obsessed with the specifics of the implementation and thinking, like, this is my thing, I am building this thing, they tie it to their identity. And what that means is, even if you have in your head, like, yeah, I want to be iterating, I want to be, you know, constantly being flexible, you still hold on too much to the broader sense of like the specific implementation. What I'm trying to say is, I think that as founders, we need to be always trying to seek the truth and always trying to check our own biases. I think that this is the thing that hurts most people starting out, by not taking like not just one step back, but 3 steps back and thinking, is this whole thing the right thing to be working on right now? Am I missing something? So.
I would agree, yes. And to follow back on this, as a first-time founder, maybe we did spend too much time in the beginning, too focused on building the product, and we probably should have took the step back, like you mentioned probably earlier. But also the way I see it is, a lot of startups kind of pivot, but pivoting doesn't always mean like forgetting about everything that you built up to this point and just putting it in the trash. You know, it's really not like this. Sometimes there are first of all the things that you learn about building your first iteration will be useful in the end, and also it can. What I see more as a pivot is like a second iteration of the project, like version 2.0, 3.0 of the same idea, of the same things that you're trying to apply. Obviously, if you wanted to open a restaurant and you're pivoting to launching an airline company, maybe this doesn't apply. But I don't think that's the case in the projects here.
Yeah, I think projects should not just accept that they have to pivot or change the way they think about things down the way, but they have to go one step further and actually integrate it in their roadmap. And to give a personal example, when we're starting designing our whole business model, we want to build a sustainable ecosystem for music artists and fans to engage. And technically, that also translates to us having our own chain. That brings us into creating the right, let's say, balance between economic security and incentives. And it suddenly becomes much more complex. And it's way difficult, if not impossible, to nail it down, on paper before you even actually have a product out there and have an active user base. And you can even see that in leading projects in the space. They start out with a certain crypto-economic model or tokenomics, and down the line they pivot depending on how the market shifts. Because let's face it, it's a very fresh and immature market, the crypto space in general. So to go back to what I said earlier, we don't just accept it, we integrate that into our flow. And in our example, we're launching on Avalanche chain first. We want to get users, we want to get arts on board, we want to talk with them after they have experienced our product and not just getting ideas out there before actually seeing some problems that might arise firsthand. And then we'll move to the next step of building our own chain, having at least, I won't say we're going to nail it, but at least we're going to have more actionable insight on what to look for and what actually has demand in the space.
There is something that somebody told me 10 or 15 years ago, and it really stuck. And it's a saying, and I'm a big believer in it, and it goes like this: strong opinions, loosely held. And let me kind of decompress that. The idea is like, I believe it's in a way how you also need to treat a business, because you need to have high conviction in what you're doing, but you need to be able to constantly listen for feedback and be ready to scrap everything and start from scratch. And it's interesting because sometimes even when you do the arguments, you can present very strong theses, but then just next day say, okay, this actually doesn't make sense. Hearing the feedback I heard, it doesn't make sense any longer. And I think building a startup in a way is all about finding this very fine balance, because on one side you need to be able to have laser focused execution on the vision that you have in front of you. At the same time, you need to be constantly looking out for the feedback. And if you skip any of those parts, I think it's game over. And it's quite easy to be game over in this game, to be honest, so let's not allow this. Yeah.
Yeah, some really interesting insights, actually. We're going to open it up for any questions from the audience. So if anyone has anyone, just feel free to raise your hand before I ask the next one. Or just feel free to put it up at any time before we end off. We'd love to get some audience questions as well. But before we do, I am curious, though. You mentioned a really interesting point earlier, George, when you were talking about how, as a founder, you are the #1 salesman of your company. And I think people tend to forget that a lot, especially in this space where immediately the founder will outsource the BD development to someone else, and now they're just whether they're technical or whatever the case is, they're just focused on building the product. So how really important is it for you guys as founders to go out there, sell the dream of what you are building, and talk to people and actually be meeting them? And how big of a role really is that, as opposed to just building?
Yeah, so I think all of us are here for that exact reason. We want to share what we're doing, because when you're starting out, no one really knows what you're doing, and you need to be able to share that idea with other people. Even if you have the best idea, if you can't properly speak about it, if you can't share it with others, it means nothing. You need to connect with other people, and you need to share that idea with others for it to actually mean something. So it is really important to talk about your company and to go out and do it yourself.
So coming from an all-technical team, I'm pretty much the only one that likes to speak to other people, which is convenient. So I get to code some of the time, but mostly I'm just out and about talking to people. I think that, I don't know, like everyone said before, distribution is the game. Like, if you are not talking to users constantly, if you're not sharing your journey as a founder on social media, then you're losing out to other people that are building similar things.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that, but it's mostly about, like George said, about getting feedbacks, you know. Like, also, like Thor said, if you're not able to properly express it, then it's just try and repeat, try and repeat, try and repeat until you get the best formulation. And also, yeah, as a founder, if you're not, you know, thrilled and able to convey how thrilled you are about your own ideas, then it's kind of hard to depend on some other guys that you would hire to do it.
Yeah, and it's not even just, let's say, very, very specific process. You usually have to balance between how you talk and communicate to an open audience, or, for example, potential business partners, or even, you know, potential investors, as we said earlier. It's a different approach you have to take there. Something that you obviously learn along the way, how to, you know, nail it down to the details. But eventually, you need to be efficient on both fronts. So yeah, that's also a piece of advice. Get yourself out there as much as you can. Don't worry about the fear that Thor expressed earlier, how people might not be able to grasp what you're saying. It's all right. That's you know, good feedback on how to improve yourself on that front. And eventually, as a founder, you need to get to a place where you can efficiently communicate both to a retail audience, or, for example, I'm sure George has to talk to institutional partners to onboard them as, you know, the fiat companies that come in between. Sorry, I forgot the terminology there. I have to talk to artists and not just actual users. So there are different, let's say, narratives or techniques you need to employ in order to be efficient in both fronts, and it's not just a, you know, linear process.
Yeah, I would answer the question with a short story that basically shows the conviction in this, in my belief in this on this topic. So I guess I was a little bit lucky in a way because the first year when in my university I studied software engineering. It was actually the first year when I got a real proper job, and it was actually selling clothes. So I remember actually putting the mathematical formulas that or tasks that I need to solve kind of for the next day on my hand. So when I was folding clothes, I could look at the formulas and actually solve the tasks in my mind, and then go in the back room and write the solutions. But something interesting that I felt during this experience was the power of actually being able to speak with a lot of people, being comfortable in front of people, and it gave me this taste of selling as a process. By the way, it was a company which had a very strict process, and if there is anyone in the store, you had to actually go and talk to them. So all this fear of actually talking to new people, not showing how they'll think about you, what they'll think about you, anything like that, it kind of started to disappear very quickly. And having this short taste, 6-7 years ago, when I was kind of trying to figure out strategically how should I plan my career path in a way, I decided to take a little bit of a break from doing any type of companies or products or my own stuff, and decided to actually be an employee. And that's when I, for example, decided strategically to join a go-to-market team in Google X, which is the moonshot factory of Google. It was building a cybersecurity company there. But in essence, it was a sales experience. And this sales experience, in my opinion, again, is incredibly valuable because now that I have to deal all with this company creation stuff and so on, I have a little bit more knowledge in this area, and every company that you do obviously feels that knowledge as well, but my personal belief is that sales for founders is one of the most important things. And when you start the company, I think probably that's a decent part of, no matter what stage you are at the sales, learning how to sell. Like obviously, even everyone has so much to learn. So you just need to invest. You need to invest the time. There's even a lot of great books that you can listen to or read. And I think that's just a process that everybody just needs to keep on grinding on.
Amazing. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Feel free.
Great. Because yourself, right? When the project is connected to yourself. So how does your project connect to yourselves? What is the link between them and yourself?
Yeah, so this all started when I was on my way to the hackathon. I was writing a paper that was due that day, and I had to I had to cite a lot of papers, and it was such a pain, like going through and having to somehow get around these paywalls, having to sign in with this institution, having to sign in with this, just because I was lucky enough to have my university have paid for that. They hadn't paid for some of them, they had paid for some, and it was just such a mess that that's sort of what inspired me to start that. My co-founder as well, he lives with, I think, like 4 other researchers, and it's something we hear constantly and constantly. Everyone talks about this. So I guess that's why like we wanted to start this company, because it really is a problem. It really is a broken system.
So for me, even before I got into the blockchain space, I've always been obsessed with being able to control my own life, I guess. So in 2018, I quit my job and I decided I wanted to try to do software startups, try to build my own companies. But I also needed to make money, so I decided to teach myself to code. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, taught myself PHP. I like PHP. No hate on PHP here, please. I know it's a meme. But I mean, you know, someone that teaches themselves to code, you have no work history, like no former clients, what do you do? Like, the only option for people like that is to go on freelance marketplaces and to do tiny tasks. You do something for 10 bucks, you do something for 20 bucks, and then eventually you work your way up and you have reviews. You have this reputation that's being built. And similarly for my co-founder, you know, he's from a very poor family. He was a bricklayer before he taught himself to code. And then similarly, he got started on the freelance platforms. And these are great tools to get started. But if you ever want to be able to, like, well, really control your life, then you can't be tied to them. And the platforms know that they have so much leverage on you because they own your most valuable asset, that reputation. So what they do is over time, they keep adding more and more and more and more and more fees. So Upwork started out with 10% fee, now it's 20%, and they decided the other year that they're going to charge you to apply for jobs. So now you have to pay them money to be even able to apply for jobs. And it's unfortunately just market incentives. Like, obviously these, you know, VC-backed startups, they made a commitment. They're saying, you know, we're going to give you returns, we're going to get to IPO, and to do that, you got to extract value from users. And we think that blockchain and having, you know, companies that are owned by users, products and protocols that are owned by users are a way to really turn that around on its head.
So it's a tough question for me because I honestly cannot say that I have a deep emotional connection to crypto economic security. But as I mean, I wish I did, but I would be lying, to be fair. But what I do care about is, as a developer, is to make things easier for other developers, you know. And what I really like and love about the blockchain, the whole Web3 space, is everything that is, I mean, most of it is open source. And this is something that I truly care about, building great open source products that are easy to use, free to use, with great documentation, etc. And so just being able to do this at our level and seeing that other builders, other developers leverage our tooling to be able to build even more additional products, that's something that I feel good about, to be fair.
So my co-founder is actually a music producer, multi-platinum, and he's actually also an actively performing musician as well. So he's been and has been working with major labels like Universal. So there is a deep connection with the music industry from his side. I have dabbled in music as well as an amateur years ago, but our friend circles are very close to that industry as well. So we have some first-hand experience on how extractive that industry is, and also how much more difficult it is for newcomers to actually have a sustainable source of income from their art. And proof of that is in a small market like my home country, Greece, is. There is a very tiny percentage of artists who can actually make decent money. I won't even talk about mega millionaires just from the art. And they usually had to turn to leveraging their brand, like either doing, let's say, advertisements or other kind of extra activities that are not deeply related to music, but basically leverage their popularity. So for us, the connection between the industry that has a problem and the solution that we propose became apparent after just having a close ear to the market, and also we're lucky enough to have an extensive network of other people, because you might have an idea. It's very easy to fall in love with that and be blindsided by what the market actually needs or its participants. So we were lucky because we were able to validate our ideas with literally tens of successful artists, and see how they vibe with it, how interesting it is for them to introduce a new and untested, maybe risky from their point of view, thing in their life, in their workflow. So yeah, to sum it up, it's a problem that we are very, very aware of that exists, that we're trying to tackle, and a solution that seems to be clicking the correct buttons in an artist's life on how to get out of this not favorable situation.
Yeah, so my experience has been, I have been involved in crypto for quite some time. I think ever since 2013, 2014, when I read the Bitcoin white paper, and I got very curious about how everything works, and etc. And since that time until now, I have, being in the industry, I have had the chance to have these indirect and direct situations where you can see shady individuals in the system. One example of such indirect kind of situation was there was a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme that collapsed, and before it collapsed, even a year before that, I was speaking with one of the employees of the company, and I was telling, in this case, her, basically, this is a Ponzi scheme. It's obvious from miles away. Why are you working there? And the answer is always, people tend to turn a blind eye. They tend to do that for various reasons. They pay, the company gives them the salary, it provides food on the table, and in many situations, people will not look in specific areas if they have economic interest involved. And I don't blame them. I mean, in the end, the employees are doing part of the equation. It's not what I would believe I would do in their situation, but it's a different world with different people. Then I had also more direct situations, kind of where I've seen shady individuals work in this space. And at some point you realize you can never even take anything personal, because whether it would be company A, which is doing shady things, whether it's company B, company C, even if you manage to protect the world or any user from any of those companies, there will be like, it's kind of like a hydra. You kill one, you slash one head, and 3 more pop up. And it would always be the case until you solve the problem on a system level. You need to provide a solution which basically make this model of operation irrelevant. And that's part of the pitch that you heard previously. You need to, like, that's what I believe in. This problem needs to be solved for various reasons. I personally believe that building is important, whether it's a simple chair or a kind of virtual solution. We are all in this world to deliver some kind of value. And that's just the battle that I have decided to pick. And that's my battle.
That was a great question because you know it's interesting, especially in this space. You tend to see a lot of people's motivations be different, right? And I think one thing that we have noticed in this specific cohort has been that there's such a diverse range of people working in different fields that they all have their own interests and passions that they brought to the table. So it's really cool to hear the things that motivated you guys. But I think we're approaching on time. So if anyone has any last few questions, we have like, you know, the last second to give it. But
I probably will have one. And it will be more about the vision. Let's say you guys, I'm pretty sure, or I wish you get there where you want to get, right? But let's say the world is talking about your projects someday, whether it is a tweet or a press headline or whatever. How would it be for you? Like, what it would say?
So let's write our press releases in 1 minute.
That's a good question. I don't know if I can like simplify everything down into one headline, but like I think the main thing is, like I said, the system is completely broken, it's predatory, and I think it needs to change. I think we need to give the power back to the researchers and the general public. We need to open up this knowledge, this access to all these discoveries that are also being paid for by the governments, you know? We're using this tax money to pay for these discoveries, which are then being paywalled by these companies, which are essentially just middlemen. I think we need to give that power back to the people.
Upwork and freelancer.com lose 95% of market share in the past 6 months thanks to freelancer movement created by radical new platform.
Hard to follow on this one.
She's already on first one.
Yeah. Maybe I would say Suzaku makes sovereign chains great again.
Will you launch merch with a hat? Okay. I'm gonna subscribe to that. So for us, it's value back to the artists, like short and simple. And if I had to, like, you know, also write the subtitle, it's not that we are, you know, killing our competitors, let's say, because honestly, we're doing something new. There's no such model out there for music artists. It's more like we're building a direct bridge from artists to fans. So a channel of value is generated without, you know, middlemen going as vultures and taking most value out of it.
I would go with something like this. Avoid the risk of the next CFI collapse without paying huge fees. Enjoy the power of fast, low-cost, and fully non-custodial transactions in your pocket. That's it. I don't know. Hopefully it works.
all right. Amazing. Let's give it up for our amazing panelists here today. Super cool stuff that they're working on. They're going to be here for the rest of the day, so feel free to bug them as much as you want about what they're building. And if you guys want to learn more about Codebase, we are launching our second cohort in a couple of months. If you want to be like them and see the cool things that they have and learn the things that they have, feel free to talk to me after. Thanks, guys.
Usman, sorry, if I may add something very short. Just doing a little bit of onboarding, I have some QRs you can scan and try our MVP. In a couple of weeks, it's live. If you want, just hit me up right here and I'll hand some out. Thank you.